We have already covered the HTML tags in theory and practice. In practice, we also saw some attributes, what they do and how they work. So now I would like to make a summary of that. What should we know about the HTML tags attributes at the moment? First of all, what are the attributes for at all? They allow us to detail a certain element. And there are two attributes for this, class and ID. We can also create our own attributes, but this is what you will learn in the future. For now, let's just know that the class is the most popular detailing attribute. For example, we can create several p tags and want all of these tags to be red. So we can give these elements class red and style this class in CSS, so that every element containing this class will be colored red. We come up with the name of the class ourselves, but we should create the class names so that they correspond to their actual roles. The class itself does nothing until you style it in CSS. The second important feature of attributes is giving the new properties to a certain tag. If we will create an img tag and give it the src attribute, we will indicate what image it should be filled with. If we will give it an alt attribute, we will say what is going to be the alternative text. So we extend the properties of this element in some way. An attribute can also define how a certain tag should behave. You saw in the previous video that the input tag with the type text attribute behaves quite differently from the same tag with the type password attribute. The attributes are most often the shortcuts of the words they mean. For example, src is the shortcut for the source. Without the src attribute, the img tag wouldn't know what image to display. So this attribute has to be in the img tag if we want the image to appear. The alt attribute that I also showed you before should be in the img tag as well. First of all, because it is necessary for people with sight disabilities to know what's in the picture. This also affects the indexing of our websites by the search engines. Alternatively, this attribute will notify the user what's in the image if for some reason the image couldn't be displayed. In this example, you can see that the src attribute contains only the name of the JPEG file. This is because the image is in the same catalog as the HTML file with our website. So in the src attribute, we specify the path to our image file. Another attribute for the img tag is the title. What it makes is that when you hover the cursor over the image, the text placed in this attribute will be visible under the mouse cursor. I want you to remember that the order of the attributes doesn't matter. The attributes are separated by a space, and the value of the attributes is usually written after the equal sign in the quotation marks. Another attribute is href. Href stands for hypertext reference, and it's an attribute that allows us to put a hyperlink, which is where we want to redirect the user after clicking. So the a tag is used to store the hyperlink, but to preserve the redirect property, it must contain the href attribute in it. I said at the beginning that the attributes allow you to identify the certain elements. Just right now I showed you a few attributes that extend the properties of the certain tags. On the other hand, the class itself does not extend the properties of the tag, but it allows you to identify the certain elements. In this example, we gave the class red to the two tags. And now using CSS, we can directly reference to all the p tags that has the class red. We let our CSS styles to identify them. And that's what we are going to use the classes for. We will use the classes in CSS, but it's good for you to know that we also use the same classes in JavaScript to refer to the specific elements. So the classes play an important role in all technologies needed to work with the websites. Another not so popular and less frequently used attribute identifying a certain element is the identifier, also known as ID. An ID differs from the class in that it can only be assigned once to the one element on a website. On the other hand, the class can be used many times in many elements, grouping them together. We also need to know that not all attributes can be used in all tags. For example, the src attribute can only be used in the img tag or other tags waiting for the path to a certain file, such as video or script. We can't use it in a div or a span tag. This would not cause an error, but it would have no effect. The vast majority of the attributes has a name and a value. We can see the type name and the email value in this example, but not all attributes has the values. Some attributes may appear on their own. For example, required. which means that this particular input in a form must be filled. The required attribute extends the properties of this input, preventing the form from being submitted if it hasn't been filled and has no value. You can place this attribute by typing the same value as the name of this attribute, but it's not necessary. The last thing I would like us to remember is that even if sometimes we don't specify an attribute for a certain tag, it's still being added by default for us. For example, if we create an input tag with no attribute, we will actually create an input tag with the type text attribute. It is similar with the img tag. If we will create the img tag with no attribute, we will actually create an img tag with the src attribute with an empty value. Many HTML elements have their own default properties, and we will rather get to know them through practice, but you should know that some properties or attributes do not have to be entered manually because they are added by default. So in terms of the attributes, that's all you need to know at the moment. Now I would like us to discuss the head tag.